What the Speak, episode 15. Don't bring me down. Please, please don't bring me down. Don't bring me down.
Do you kick ass when you speak, present, or pitch? If not, these expert discussions and insider tips can help you right now, today. Welcome to the What the Speak podcast. I'm your host, Brian Kelly.
If you've never seen the story behind how and why the What the Speak podcast got started, visit whatthespeak.com/speakbetter to watch the 90-second video. If you like what you see, send the link to someone you know. Scott Dinsmore runs a blog called Live Your Legend. His passion is to help people find the work that they love to do that helps them come alive. This passion has attracted over 50,000 subscribers to his site. Now, back in October of 2012, Scott was asked to give a TEDx talk at the De Young Museum in San Francisco about how to find and do the work you love. We go behind the scenes on how he got invited to speak at this event and what things were like leading up to this high-stakes presentation. It's a brilliant story chock full of inspiration and valuable lessons. So Scott, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I'm thrilled to talk about your experiences with the TED Talk that you gave that is probably one of the top 20 talks out there right now.
Well, Brian, thanks, man. It's fun to be on here, and I'm excited to dig into it. It was a crazy and emotional process. So
I bet. Well, so it was October 2012, not too long ago, and in the first 6 weeks that this video was posted, you had almost 200,000 views. And since then, now today I actually just looked at it, it's right around 700,000 views. And when you look at the rankings on YouTube for the TEDx channel, it's in the top 20. So that's quite a feat. And I'm really interested in talking to you about how this came about and really how you prepared for this. So are you ready?
I'm ready. It's been fun. It's kind of hard to believe when you recite kind of how it's turned out, and you never know how all this stuff is going to go. So
yeah, exactly.
It's gone as it has, and this will be fun.
Well, this is cool too because not too long ago, a few weeks back or whatever it was, I interviewed Nancy Duarte about her TED Talk, and she said it took like 9 months for her to get any traction on her video.
That's funny. Well, she was a huge inspiration in this piece coming together the way that it did. I mean, it was almost all because of, her ideas and Resonate and all that. So we'll get into that, but she does amazing work.
Cool. So let's first start talking about how did this happen? How did this come to be? The invitation to speak there. Can you share with us the details on that? Yeah.
So and I'll have to pass along an article I wrote about how this first came to be, and I really went back like 2 or 3 years prior when I tried to just map out like what kind of things overlap, what kind of connections lead to what. But I think I'll start with, I remember a few years back I said, one big like lifetime goal is to give a TED related talk, TEDx, actual TED, whatever it is. And I set that goal mainly because it meant that you knew a topic pretty well, like for them to have you come and speak. And that was a way of me like framing that up. And I remember I put it on my list as like maybe a 10-year thing. And then I didn't do anything with it. I just had it sitting there. And even the year that the talk happened, I remember at the beginning of the year, I said, you know what? I'm going to take this off the list for this year. I'm not going to just pressure myself with it, whatever. Like it can happen later on, if it does at all. And then of course that's when it ends up coming together, but I definitely had the intention about it. And I watch a ton of TED Talks as is. I mean, it's one of my favorite places to get ideas and inspiration and all that. And so it started with that idea of just wanting to be able to do that one day. And then I ended up getting to know some people in San Francisco that I think they had started or co-founded the TEDx San Francisco group. And the one I did was TEDx Golden Gate Park. So it was in San Francisco, but they're different organizations. I guess there's a ton of TEDx even among the same city. But anyway, so I got to know these two women, Christine and Taylor. They were awesome people, and we had some mutual friends and things. And we started to spend some time together, and I just loved what they were up to. They were just bringing people together in the community in a neat way, and they do dinner parties every week, and just a lot of fun stuff. And I remember one day one of them asked me, said, "Hey, Scott, would you want to speak at our dinner party one night?" I'm like, "Well, that sounds fantastic. Not to mention, maybe if I do a good job, like they'll think I might be worth a bigger stage. Who knows?" But either way, it was a opportunity worth diving into. And so I probably prepared for that more than I should. But it was like a 20-minute talk before some other events at this dinner party. And that topic actually ended up being part of what my TEDx talk became. But that was probably the first intentional, like, I'm going to say yes to this. Well, for a number of reasons, I just wanted to do it, but also I thought this could be a neat kind of progression towards that path. And but then anyway, I did that. It went well, and it was a lot of fun. And I hadn't done really a ton of formal speaking before that. I mean, I've spoken at universities and different things that have come up here and there, but it's not like I'm on the speaking circuit or something. Right. I'm not like, that's not something that I'm actively pursuing, where there's other things we're building at Live Your Legend. And so it's just not the big focus. But, and then, I kind of stopped thinking about the TEDx thing and that goal. And then a reader from our community from Live Your Legend, and Live Your Legend is based on helping people find and do work they love. And one of them said in our Facebook group, they said, "Hey, Scott, are you going to this TEDx event?" And it was on the pursuit of passion or something. I saw it, and I thought to myself, I'm like, damn it, like, how did I not know about that? And how did I not do my work to try and, find a way to maybe speak at it or do it? It's the perfect topic for what we focus on. But anyway, I ended up, I asked the people at the other TEDx group from San Francisco, I said, "Hey, do you know these people putting this on?" They're like, "Actually, yeah, we do. Do you want me to recommend that you speak?" And I'm like, "Well, sure." I mean, it's only 2 months out. I'm like, they already have all their speakers. I mean, that's nice of you to offer, but it's sealed up. And they ended up introducing me to the guy who put it on, and we had a nice exchange over email. And he said, "Scott, man, I wish I would have known you earlier. I would have, tried to get you in the speaking lineup." He's like, "But still come, and we'd love to have you in the audience." And I thought, well, thanks, and I'm under my breath thinking, damn it, I missed something. And then what happened was we interacted a little bit more with the guy who had started it, and this guy Darius, who's a really nice guy, and they're doing another one this year, I guess, in San Francisco on passion again. But anyway, within that was 2 months out before the event, and then within like a month of the event, he wrote me and said, "Hey, Scott, we had someone cancel. We already have an alternate, but would you like to be the second alternate?" And I'm thinking, okay, second alternate, like, when does that ever happen? I'm like, well, tell me, like, what are the odds that I would speak? He's like, "Well, it's about a 10% chance, but you'd want to prepare as if you're going to give it." And I'm thinking, like, I don't know if I have it in me to, like, put that kind of energy into a talk that you only have a 1 in 10 chance of actually standing up and giving it. But what was neat is that a month before, I had spoken at UC Davis, their MBA program, about really this idea, the topic that I ended up speaking at the TEDx about, called the Passionate Work Framework, which is just this concept I've developed about how you find and do work you love. And when I developed that presentation, I said, you know what, I want to develop this as if it was going to be a TED Talk. Like, I want to develop the slides that way and the transitions. Granted, it was an hour talk, so it wasn't the same time length, but that was just, for some reason, the goal I set. And what was cool is that when that guy asked to see some of my material, I had this on the ready. It had been filmed. It had the slides the way I wanted, whatever it was. So it was a very fortuitous kind of serendipity type thing that happened. And so that led to him asking me to be the second alternate. And then 6 days, I think, before the event, they called and said, "All right, Scott, the other guy bailed out. We need someone to do it. And like, you 100% be the guy that would be on, you'd be on stage. And so would you do it?" And thinking, oh my God, like, okay, this is like, a fantastic opportunity. We were launching our biggest course yet at Live Your Legend the morning before the TEDx talk was supposed to happen. And it was going to be open for the next 4 days. So it was like the perfect storm. And I thought, you know what the hell? Like, let's dive in. You can't turn something down like this. And so I think I was fortunate in the fact that I didn't have 9 months to prepare. I had 6 days. And if I would have had 9 months, it's like Parkinson's Law. I would have filled all 9 months with preparation. And it was funny, when I got to the event, I met one of the speakers in the parking lot. And when I got there, he knew maybe 15 other people or so, and was talking with them, giving them hugs. I said, "Oh, who are they? How do you know those folks? And he's like, oh, those are all the speakers. I'm like, oh, it seems like you guys know each other pretty well. He said, oh yeah, we did a weekend intensive speaking seminar together, 4 months ago. I'm like, oh, fantastic. Like I'm going on stage first in 2 hours and I just heard this, but anyway, so that's how it built up. It's like you could never connect that stuff, looking forward, like Steve Jobs says, but it's wild when you kind of put the feelers out there and make it clear that you care about this stuff and it just overlaps and intersects. So how can I, in terms of specifics, what do you want to dive into?
I think the thing that's really interesting is that you said prior to this, you hadn't really done too much public speaking, but you've got your videos that you do. And it sounds like even the way that this kind of serendipitously came together, that you already had the content pulled together. You knew what you were going to talk about. It's all about passion. And clearly, you're passionate about this topic. But what were some of the things that you did in preparation to pull together, how you were going to cohesively talk about this topic and get up in front of the stage of people to share your ideas on, living your legend. So can you give us a little bit of insight into that?
Definitely. And I got pretty specific and try to get kind of scientific with that. I haven't done a ton of public speaking, but have done it, here and there as it's come up. And I've tried to each time be specific about, okay, I want to work on XYZ, skill or topic or idea in this talk. So I kind of try and develop myself. And I'd taken Toastmasters for a couple of years as well, a number of years back, which was fantastic. And what I had, and one thing that totally changed the game is the year before I had spoken at one of the events at this World Domination Summit that's put on by Chris Guillebeau. And right before that, a friend of mine, Corbett Barr, gave me a book called Resonate by Nancy Duarte. And I picked the book up. I was going to Turkey for the year. It was a year before. I was going to Turkey for like 3 weeks with some friends. And I brought it along thinking, I'll just take a look at this, on my flight back. And I was speaking 2 days later in Portland. And I opened the book and it completely turned my world upside down. I'm like, oh my God, like this stuff is brilliant. It's fantastic, but I need to go completely back to the drawing board with this. And it blew me away. And the framework she provides of just, going from, what could be to what is, what could be, and going back and forth, and kind of just the call to adventure, all these things that she goes through, it really resonated with me. It just felt right. And so that was my first chance to really implement that whole process. And then I just became a raving fan of it. And so that I knew when I was giving the TEDx talk, I was definitely going to use the Resonate framework. And so that was my basis. And I just wanted to think of, what are the few stories I want to tell? What are the key things I want people to get? But what I did was, since I already watch a lot of TED Talks really all the time, I went through and tried to get pretty specific about what are the top ones and why are they the top ones? What's going on here? Even a friend of mine in a communications firm in Washington, D.C., he did a deep research project on the top 10 TED Talks and why he believes they have done as well as they have to connect with the audience. And so I started with that and just try to dive really deep. I remember Simon Sinek's Start With Why was a huge inspiration and motivating piece for me. I've watched that probably 15 times. The concept is powerful. The way he communicates it is amazing. And so I watched his and Jamie Oliver and who are some of the others? Brene Brown and the others aren't coming to mind to me right now, but Tony Robbins, a few others, but I watched them kind of on repeat to kind of just get in the psychological state, like, hey, I want to try and deliver on the best level I can. And that's worth noting is that my goal going into this, it wasn't to give a talk, like to make it through to the end of the talk and not, pass out. I feel like a lot of people at the event that were giving talks, their goals seem more like, let's just get through this. And my goal was, I want to do everything in my power to present something that is worthy of being on TED's homepage. Now, obviously, I have no control over what goes on their homepage, and from what I know, my talk has never ended up there. But that wasn't my point. The point was I wanted to kind of have that standard as opposed to just let's try and get through it. So that's why I did all this work and this build up. And I thought, I'm a big fan of, there's few things you can control, And so the things you can control, do everything in your power to just harness those. And so I had control over the preparation, giving the best talk that I was capable of, and not saying it, I mean, obviously it could always be better, but that again was my goal. So I always watch a number of those different talks. I have those on the ready for inspiration and for ideas of structure. And then I ended up mapping it out on a whiteboard, and I'll show you. I took pictures of the whiteboard. I have all this in this article I wrote, and then I went through. I think the first time I went through it was at like 28 minutes or something. I'm like, oh my God, like this has to be 18 minutes max. They said at 17 minutes, you really should be done. And if at 17 and a half, the MC would walk on stage, 17:45, the music comes on and they shut off your mic. I'm like, okay, so this is pretty serious. I've never been in a situation like that. Usually talks, it's like, well, whatever, however long it takes. If it's 20, 25, if it's an hour, hour and 10. So that was a totally different set of pressure, which I had never really been a part of. Not to mention just the intensity of the TED brand and all that. I mean, I'm sure I have a knack for over preparing and for over just thinking things, and I'm sure I did it in this case, and I was definitely, if you ask my wife, I was definitely in rehearsal mode, like in a very intense way. I mean, I probably went over it, 25 times within the 24 hours before. It started out at 28 minutes, and then I think the night before it was still at 21 or 22. Yeah. And the morning before I went over, I'd gotten it down to 16 and a half or 17. And so it ended up being 17 minutes and like 52 seconds or something. I forget. It was something right there, but I was at 16 minutes. I saw the timer and I noticed, I'm like, okay, I have enough time. So I kind of chilled out and knew I was going to make it through it. But so that was really the preparation. I really try and do my best to not reinvent the wheel, model off people who have done great things in the past.
Well, the thing that I think is good is you've got the stories, you've got quotes, you've got, all the things that you mentioned that you kind of modeled after Nancy's framework in her Resonate book, which I think are obviously all great things that help pull together everything that you're wanting to convey through that 17, 18-minute window. Now, the thing that I think is really particularly interesting about your presentation is the zeal that you were able to deliver this message with. And we look at the numbers. I mean, people are connecting with this on a level that is pretty significant. So I wanted to make sure, we've got just a couple minutes left here to have you talk about the passion and about how you were able to really bring that. Obviously, it's something that I think you spend a lot of time on. It's your kind of topic, your area of expertise. But for those who are really looking to go from just conveying ideas and sharing information to being able to really connect and inspire others, like what's that secret ingredient? What's the secret sauce?
Yeah, I mean, I think the secret sauce is just to really care about what you're talking about. I mean, to give a talk on something that doesn't matter to you is a really easy way to make an audience fall asleep. And this topic I feel really, really strongly about, and it can make me angry at times. Like, it can just get me really fired up. And also the stories that I put in there are really stories that like I emotionally can like feel where I was at that point when like that story occurred in my life, and to really dig into that place and really get into it, and I mean move around and get in a state where it's really exciting and active. And I really wanted to make sure I moved around, that I had a lot of different gestures and things that involved like the different things I was doing, and to really to connect with just the words and the ideas. But I think I forget, is it Dale Carnegie who says if you can make anyone a fantastic public speaker if you just make them really angry?
Yes.
And I'm not saying I was like getting on the stage like pissed off or something, but it's just a topic I feel really strong with. So that's the first step. Like, try to only speak on things that you really, really care about. And I in terms of like right before, I have a few things that I do like that are kind of maybe weird to some people, but like I was out and it was at the DeYoung Museum in the Golden Gate Park in San Francisco. And so I went out into the park 10 or 15 minutes before, maybe 20 minutes before, and I have like an Inspire Me playlist. And so I played through some different things, and there's all kinds of weird stuff on it. I mean, there's a couple things from the musical Rent. There's a Pitbull song. There's one about Gandhi. I just have a crazy mix of things, but they happen to just I'm kind of have them anchored to different things that really fire me up. So between that and then I do usually a series of push-ups and things to like get me just like in like a physical like state. I know that's something that I remember hearing from Tony Robbins a lot. He would talk about the fastest way to change your psychology is to change your physiology and to move and breathe. And so I don't know if anyone saw me doing the up and down jumps and everything like that, but I don't know, it helps me right before the act, but then just really knowing kind of you have an opportunity that could really matter, and there's a chance that this could really change all kinds of things, that you could really have an impact. You know, I mean, it doesn't mean that everything that you say is going to connect and that it's going to have an impact, but if you treat it like that, I think it raises your game and puts you on this new level of just like really wanting to just like nail it, and you can just feel it, you know?
Yeah. No, I think that these are all great lessons for all of us to be able to see how that fits into what our message is or the ideas that we want to communicate through our presentations, our public speaking opportunities, etc. You know, it's really being prepared, having that goal, you know, and setting the expectation in your mind, like what you want to exactly do with that, and then combining that with having a deep understanding of your topic and really being passionate about it, and then you know, physically getting yourself in a state to where you're not just rolling out on a stage and kind of in a sleepy, you know, boring state. It's like you're juiced, you've got lots of energy and vitality, and people will find that very, very attractive.
Yeah, well, if you want to uninspire some people, walk on stage, hunch over, look down, and kind of talk really lightly like that. You know, it's like it's obvious, but a lot of people miss that. So. And one thing before we finish up that I have to make sure I mention, because it wouldn't be fair to the audience, is that so it's gotten a lot of traction, and that's been amazing. It's my goal, I think, at first for it was to get 15,000 views or something. That was like what I wanted to hit. But the thing is, I did a lot of work to try and make that happen. There's another thing where what's in my control? Well, I can't control how many people view it, but I can control, you know, who I share it with and kind of the intention that I have with getting it out there and my audience and other people's audience. So I was really specific and strategic about who I shared it with. And it wasn't about like, hey, tell as many people as you can to go share it. It was more like, listen, I think this could be helpful. If you think it would be helpful for others, I mean, watch it. And if it is, then it would be awesome if you share it with some others. But if not, like, no pressure. It wasn't like just like spam a bunch of people. But I was really intentional about that. I probably spent a week, like off and on, really getting it out into different spaces. So it wasn't like publish and you're done. And actually in figuring out even the title and the summary, I spent hours on that and really thinking through it. And I think that stuff really matters. It's like a headline for an article or a blog post or a title of a book. I mean, the naming is key. Now, who knows what's caused what to happen? I'm sure there's a lot of luck too. I know there is. But anyway, it's important to mention that it's not just publishing, you're done. I think that's when things start.
Great. Well, yeah. Scott, I thank you so much for your time. It was great hearing the story behind this and kind of your personal approach to setting this whole thing up and creating a talk that really does resonate with a large number of people. So thanks again.
Yeah, Brian, it's fun. It's fun to talk about it. So happy to help.
All right.
Are you working out right now or listening to this episode while driving? If so, I know you're not able to leave a rating and review in iTunes at the moment. However, next time you're in front of your computer or smartphone, could you be sure to do so? Just go to whatthespeak.com/audio or whatthespeak.com/video. Thanks so much for your support.
All right, here we go with the outro.
Thanks so much for joining us today on What to Speak. Be sure to visit whatthespeak.com for show notes on every episode and to sign up for our email list to stay updated on resources that'll help you kick ass when you speak, present, or pitch.